Morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We will go ahead and get started with some announcements. So let me share my screen. Boom, boom, boom. All righty. So, sorry, too many things open. There we go. All right. There we go. All right. So, just some reminders. A lot of these are gonna sound very similar to last biweekly. But if you're interested in working over the summer and haven't let admin know as soon as possible so we can start planning for and preparing for the summer. Um, Community events. We had our community event in Oconee yesterday, and that was a great, wonderful time. And we had our team meal last night in Oconee. It was great. And so we have our Gainesville and Dahlonega events happening next week. So be sure to be announcing those to your students, encouraging your students to attend, you to attend as well. If it's anything like Oconee, it'll be a great turnout and a great time had by all. So yes, please be encouraging everybody that you know to be attending. Donation drives are happening / will be happening on each of our campuses. So last biweekly, we had started our one in Gainesville for the Good Samaritan ministry. And so we are going to continue doing that on Gainesville and Oconee. Oh, and that donation box is in 1213, where we hold biweekly the SI room. And then in Oconee, we're doing a book drive for the library. So if you have any books that you're like kind of done with, or you just are ready to donate, or you want to go buy some books to donate to the library, I told Oconee this yesterday. Libraries are great. If you do not have a library card, I would encourage all of you to go get a library card. Libraries have a lot more than just books. They have an incredible amount of resources for you. So definitely check out your local library. And then in Dahlonega, we are going to be collecting items for the UNG food pantry. So I am dropping a link in the chat, and that it has kind of like the list of what all they are looking for. I would say big things to note is that they are not currently taking any canned vegetables or ramen noodles. But if you scroll down, it has a list of all the things that they're accepting. And so that box is actually going to be brought to Dahlonega when I head into the office today. And so that will probably stay in 270 if you would like Stuart 270. So if you would like to donate, you can drop your items off in there. And so these are going to be going on up until our end of semester ceremony. So if you would like to if you're on Gainesville or Dahlonega and you have some books that you want to donate to the Oconee Drive, the last day that we're going to be collecting any donations is actually going to be the end of semester ceremony. So you can bring books or anything else that you would like to donate to maybe a campus that you aren't on to the end of semester ceremony, where we will collect our last minute donations. So that'll be a great time and excited for all the good that we're going to be able to do. New facilitator application is open, so please continue to recruit. And then this next kind of announcement is from our resources committee. So our lovely, wonderful people who are working on resources and organizing all of our resources on Teams and getting new up-to-date resources onto Teams. They just request that if you are uploading any like additional resources, worksheets, anything like that onto your planning sheets, if you could just include the course number, the faculty, a brief description / chapters of like what the content is over, and then the semester. And so over the summer, what their goal is to start really organizing our Teams page so that next semester when you're going to look for session resources, it's going to be really easy. You might be with a new faculty member and you can be like, oh, look, this is a worksheet from that faculty member. So definitely please do that. That will make your life and everybody else's life very easy in the future. So we would very much appreciate y'all doing that. And then the last kind of like announcement, so to speak, is just be on the lookout for communications from Sarah about session/bonus hour attendance. Sarah is sending out emails about sessions or bonus hours that are having consistently low attendance. And she'll kind of give you the options kind of moving forward, what that'll look like. But if you have any questions, let her know. She would love to talk about your options with you and kind of what moving forward for these last 5 weeks of the semester will look like. And so then our upcoming events and deadlines, we have our hours logs due next Friday, the 31st, and our leadership talk on communication will also be on that Friday at noon on Zoom. And then right before our next biweekly, we're gonna have a team meal in Dahlonega on April 6th. So be on the lookout for more updates and details on that, probably in the group me from Elise. And then this one hopefully is already on your calendars, but if not, go ahead and be sure to put this on there. Our end of semester ceremony is going to be Friday, April 28th at 6 p.m. And that'll be held in Dahlonega. And this event is required. So, it's like over a month in advance. So hopefully, and it's been on our calendar since the beginning. So go ahead, start making the preparations to be there, be in Dahlonega in person at 6 p.m. on April 28th. But if there's something like absolutely you aren't able to be there, something you absolutely cannot move, reach out and let your supervisor know as soon as possible. So those are all of our upcoming events and deadlines for this biweekly. We have lots of March birthdays to be celebrating. I think it was Dylan yesterday and Valerie is coming up soon. So I think Justin was also this in the last week or so. Anyway, we've had a lot of March birthdays recently. So happy birthday to all of our March birthdays. And yeah, we're very excited that you were born and that you are on our team and we get to celebrate you. So happy birthday and happy birthday to all of our March birthdays coming up as well. And so those are our announcements for the day. Did I miss anything? Anybody? I'm seeing a head shaking no, so did good there. So I think Anna said in the chat, where do we go on the Dahlonega campus for end of semester ceremony? We'll put more information out, but Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's going to be Hogue ABC rooms. Yeah, so we'll be in the Hogue Student Center ABC rooms. And like I said, we'll give more information out as well as we get a little closer to the event. Sarah, will you do me a favor and start working on some breakout rooms? I forgot about those. So, Sarah's gonna work on, yes. So Sarah's gonna be working on some breakout rooms for us, but as I share this, essentially this will be great. So you're going into breakout rooms, so you might want to take a picture, jot some notes down because y'all are gonna be kind of thinking about this as well. But as you may recall, hopefully you recall, right before biweekly, we did a talk about, or right before our last biweekly, we focused on our strengths, right? And so we kind of did a deep dive, kind of examining our own strengths, kind of the general idea, theory behind some strengths-based leadership stuff. And so this kind of recall is really kind of going back to a lot of our closing from that biweekly. We did a 3-2-1. So I just want to spend some time with us kind of just thinking about, like it says, think per share. So we're all going to do some time just thinking about some of these things. Then we'll pair up and then we'll come back together as a big room and share. But be thinking about, how have you noticed your strengths coming out in your role in SI since the last biweekly? Hopefully you've been a little bit more intentional in this past week of going to class, holding sessions, that kind of thing. How have you noticed your strengths coming back? Or when you look back on it, where do you see your strengths coming out? How have you utilized your strengths for recruitment? And what kind of leading into that, what was the goal you set in last biweekly? How is progress towards that goal really coming along? What is that looking like? So, like I said, we'll take a few minutes of thinking about this, and then we will pair up for a few minutes, and then we'll come back to the big room and share. Sarah, did you go ahead and open breakout rooms?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That works.
Was I not supposed to?
I mean, I was gonna say, all right, now we're gonna go to breakout rooms after our thing, but that's fine.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. Just so you all know, I'm gonna close breakout room, so they'll have the 60 seconds to come back. All righty, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had some great discussions. But yeah, so I would love to hear and do the share part of the Think Pair Share of anything that really stuck out to you, or any of your responses or your partner's responses to any of these like reflection type questions.
I can go. So on the third one, what was the goal you set in the last bi-weekly? The goal I set was to get like one more student in session. And I said I wanted one more like regular student in session, but I didn't get a regular student. So I got one more student that had like come to session like once before. Came yesterday. And I was like, oh my gosh, no way. Because I thought no one was going to show up. And then they joined and I was like, oh, how fun. So I got two students in a session, which I haven't had in like weeks. So that was really cool. I always have like one student, but it was cool to have two students. And so I guess that was like progress towards that goal, like because I got a student in the session. So that was nice. But
Yeah, and that student may become like a regular, so to speak. But yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. We love hearing some of those wins. I know it's early, but y'all were just talking. So let's continue that talking, just in a little bit larger of a group.
I guess I'll share. So my goal was for like overall semester wise to get less than 7 no-shows because I'm really struggling with attendance, and I've been trying to use my my strengths in a different way because a lot of mine don't really have the like a lot of leadership to them, like a lot of demanding and being very encouraging about like everyone go to SI please, but recently in classes I've been really pushing it, and I got one new student last session, so that was really exciting.
Love that. It sounds like you might be tapping into some of the influencing strengths as well to encourage your students to come to session. And it seems to at least be working on one of them, and that's incredible. All right, let's hear from at least one person hearing about how they may have seen their or noticed their strengths coming out in their role.
I can share on that one. So my strengths were centered more around like being orderly and like keeping everything straight. And in session, I think honestly, in a way, it's a little bit of an opposite of my strengths of getting better at accounting for a bunch of different students' learning needs. I've consistently had one particular student at my session who is multiple weeks behind in the content due to missing some classes, and another student who is really up to date in the content and just wants more like expansion and what we might see next and that kind of stuff. And so trying to account for different students' learning needs and like a productive manner that will still help everyone is something that I have been trying in my sessions.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, thanks everybody who shared. Those were some great things to hear. We love hearing some of those like good news bits and pieces as well. So next up, what we're going to do is watch more of a listen, but it's a YouTube video, to a little bit of a podcast from Simon Sinek's podcast, A Bit of Optimism, where he had Brene Brown on. We've talked about Brene Brown before in the past, but if you don't know, Simon Sinek is another one of our leadership guru type people. He wrote a lot of books and a lot of things that we kind of use in SI and kind of some of our foundational leadership topics. So excited for y'all to get to hear the two of them talk, and then we will pick back up. So let me stop sharing this. Share my screen with the sound. Mute myself.
That's right. And you said something before that we're losing skills.
Yes.
And it reminded me of a story that a wonderful female entrepreneur that I know told me. And she said her theory is that men make better entrepreneurs than women. This is her theory. I have to underscore that.
I'm listening.
And this is what she said. She said, whether you like it or not, traditional roles still exist. So if a boy wants to go to the prom, he has to ask out the girl, traditional roles. And if the girl wants to go to the prom, traditionally, she waits to be asked to go to the prom. And if the guy doesn't ask, he doesn't go. And because of that, men being the social initiators, traditionally, at a very young age, boys learn to muster up courage, ask, be humiliated and rejected. Muster up courage, ask, be humiliated and rejected. Muster up courage, ask, be humiliated and rejected. And as adults, this translates into muster up courage, try, didn't work, try again. Where women, her theory, never learn that skill. And so as entrepreneurs, fear the rejection, the humiliation of failure more than men. And I've seen this happen in meetings where a guy, he's got a business and he's got some 40 or 50% solution figured out. And there's a client at the table going, well, we need this. And he goes, oh, we can do that for you. We've got that. We've got that. And sell it right there in the room. When I've sat there with women who got like 98% of it figured out, I'm like, say something. And they're like, it's not perfect yet. I'm like, just say something. They're like, it's not perfect yet. And the statistics about, when men look at a job posting and there's 10 requirements, if they have 6 of them, they think they're qualified.
Right.
Where women think they need 9 or 10 to think that they're qualified. And the question that raises, to your point about losing skill set, is if we're all moving to a swipe dating scenario, that forget about men versus women, like everybody's losing the skill set of mustering up courage to ask somebody out, be rejected, try again, because we don't have humiliation anymore in an online dating scenario.
I don't even know where to start unpacking this thing.
I'm just the messenger.
What you choose to share.
Here's what I think is interesting about it. That there are skills that we build as kids that become invaluable as adults.
There's no question.
And because of technology, There's an entire generation of kids that are missing out on essential skill sets that are required as adults, amongst which include the skill of how to build deep, meaningful connection.
I agree 100%. What I would say, and I think it bears digging into the story a little bit, because I do think that if we look at shame triggers by masculine and feminine, which I try to use that language more,
Yeah.
if we look at masculine shame triggers, the number one shame trigger for masculinity is don't be perceived as weak.
Mm-hmm.
So rejection, to your point, is really tough when that is your shame trigger. For feminine, and these are culturally bound expectations, right?
Sure.
And so for those seeking feminine norms, the number one shame trigger is perfection. Do it all, do it perfectly, and make it look effortless. And so I do think shame, the fear of feeling weak, the fear of being imperfect.
Sure.
Let me just tell you, kids do not pick up the phone. I don't know that my kids have ever picked up the phone and called a friend. They text.
Mm.
I do think the point that we're not experiencing emotional conflict, emotional hard things, emotional great things in person has really shifted our skill set.
Mm.
I see it because I've taught graduate school for 20 something years. The number of people that can look you in the eye and give you a firm handshake and deliver information that you don't want to hear is just decreasing by the minute.
Mm.
In terms of women and men, I don't know what the data say about who's more successful in entrepreneurship, but what I do know is that there's also a lot of expectations at the table when the woman speaks up and doesn't have it perfectly, or the person of color shares an idea that's not fleshed out completely. There's a lot of generosity toward the white guy who shares that idea. The number of white guys at the table who are receiving that idea probably outnumber the number of women at the table. And then if you start talking about people of color, indigenous people, Black people, then you've got a real different narrative on your hands. I remember one day sitting down with Steve, and I told Steve that I was really afraid that what made us successful in our careers were struggles that we went through that our kids will never have to go through. And we started talking about it. And my husband's a pediatrician, and he said, we had a lot of trauma growing up. We had a really bad fighting parents, vicious divorces, like things. He said, I think the key for parenting, and I'll never forget this, is make sure they experience the adversity, but they don't need the trauma that most of us went through. And I think from a parenting and educator situation, we haven't made the clear distinction between adversity really teaching some skills that we need and trauma really setting us back. Does that make sense? So I think the adversity piece is real that you're mentioning, whether it's asking people out for a date, whether it's not being asked out on a date, whether it's not getting invited by a group of friends to go do something, making up stories about what's happening because we're using social media as our narrator. And it's happening in the adult world too. And I'll tell you why. Let's say I lose my job and I get home and I'm distraught and I post on Facebook, lost my job today. And I get 30 comments from people saying, God, so sorry, I'll keep my eyes out. You know, that does not require anywhere the amount of vulnerability of me getting home and picking up the phone and saying, hey, Simon, do you have a second? Yeah, what's going on? I got laid off today. That is a much more vulnerable act of connection. We call it a bid for connection. That is a bid for connection. It is not a piñata hit with a bat to see what candy falls. It is calling you and asking you for your time and making an intimate bid for connection. And we don't know how to do that. Would your conversation with your military buddy have been the same instead of a call if he would have texted and saying, everything good, dude? Yeah, everything's good here. Take care. Would have been the same? No.
What common practices are young people engaging in now that have become acculturated have to change for them to learn the skills that they need to be successful adults and better deal with stress that it doesn't lead to trauma?
People always ask me what the best parenting advice is that I came across in the 20 years of research, and everyone gets pissed off when I say it. The best parenting advice I can tell you is hard as shit. We need to be the adults we want our children to grow up to be. just like we need to be the leaders that we wish we had.
Yeah.
So if we want our kids to grow up and be able to have a look you in the eye hard conversation, they
Yeah.
need to see us doing that. They
Yeah.
need to see us put our phones down. If my daughter walks in the room or my son walks in the room and says, hey, do you have a minute? If I'm in the middle of something on my computer, I don't go, yeah, what's going on? And don't look up. I say, give me just a second. Let me finish what I'm doing. 1 minute. I finish what I'm doing. I close the laptop. I
Yeah.
turn toward them and say, what's going on? We have to be the adults. And let me tell you, the adults are tapping out of hard conversations with the
Yeah.
same frequency that the kids are,
Because they're hard.
because they're hard. Like, we just have to practice. You have to have them. You have to fuck them up. You have to redo them. You have to, I have to say, hey, Simon, I tried to have a card conversation with you yesterday, and I don't think I did it very well. I don't like the way I showed up. Can I have another shot? I really care about you. Our relationship is important to me. And I didn't say it the way I wanted to say it. It goes back to the very first thing you said, is people underestimate the power of the truth.
I hope I'm not romanticizing the past, but it seems these days more and more we choose easy.
Alrighty, we're gonna stop it there. But I loved that podcast as well. They joke at one point that, like, at the end when they end it at like the hour mark, they're like, I could do like a 15-hour podcast with you. And I was like, yes, please, I would listen to that any day. But so yeah, so that was a great kind of, I love that because it brings in some real life problems and issues that a lot of us are facing, right? And even though they talk about like dating and having hard conversations, like I think the kind of overarching like unifying universal piece is adversity, right? All of you have faced some sort of adversity, you faced some sort of hard time, and you were able to get through it, right? We've all done hard or difficult things. But they're talking about like children, being the ones to like drop the ball and not have like these hard, difficult conversations. But like she says too, like it's also adults. We're also dropping that and not having those difficult conversations. I think a lot of times we don't have those hard conversations because they can be so scary. And so kind of a preview of our last couple biweeklies is we're going to get into personal legends and kind of like really identifying like what it is like we're trying to attain in life and just like our personal legend, personal journeys. But one of the things like that will happen is on our like personal legends, on our journeys, we're going to face some of those hardships, and it's going to be really easy to be like, well, that's hard, I'm done, right? Because it can be hard, it can be difficult, it can bring out those difficult emotions. But in those hard times, like we don't go into them like Brene Brown and Dare to Lead, which we're about to read a little bit from, talks about like uses like this arena metaphor. Like we don't go into like, I think of like the Roman like Colosseum, like, you know, we aren't going into this arena like with no armor, like no shield, like we aren't going in empty-handed. We have different things that can help us get through those difficult conversations. And one of those things is our values. And so, like I said, I wanted to read a little bit from Dare to Lead. She says, but think about those moments when something really hard has happened to someone in our lives. Maybe a friend or a colleague has a partner, a parent, or a child who has been hurt or killed. And we know that we need to make the call and check in and see how we can support. But rather than doing that, we zigzag. We walk past the phone so many times that we eventually convince ourselves that it's too embarrassingly late to make the call. It starts with, okay, I should call, but they're probably eating dinner. I'll call later. Several hours go by. You know what? It's bedtime. I'm going to call tomorrow. You wake up the next morning. I bet they still have a lot of family over. I'll call in a few days when it's quieter. And what do we do? And what do we feel when we never make that call and we run into that colleague or friend 2 or 3 weeks later at the grocery store? Most of us feel shame and we feel completely outside of our integrity. On my list of courage behaviors is something my mom taught us growing up. Show up for people and in pain and don't look away. From my experience and from what I've learned from the daring leaders I've interviewed, I will pick those 5 to 10 seconds of discomfort any day over pulling into my driveway and turning off the car while thinking about what I did or didn't do and how missing the opportunity to do or say something was a betrayal of what I value most. Another courage behavior for me, choose courage over comfort. And I'll share a little hack with you about those seconds of discomfort. I did an experiment several years ago to see how long the intense in the moment discomfort lasts. After a couple months of tracking it, I landed on 8 seconds. In most situations, there are 8 seconds of intense discomfort. I told Steve, "Oh my God, it's like riding a bull. You have to make it 8 seconds." So now when I know something hard is fixing to happen, I always think of George Strait's Amarillo by morning, but I'll be looking for 8 when they pull that gate. I mean, come on, we can do anything for 8 seconds, right? The discomfort may linger long after, but the hardest part of the ride has settled down. And so what she's talking about here is, essentially there's those 8 seconds of discomfort. And if we can lean into those 8 seconds of discomfort and get through those 8 seconds of discomfort, we can really get past that discomfort and then act in a way that is hopefully going to align more with our values. And let me share my screen again. And so this is another quote by Brene Brown. She starts this section of Dare to Lead with this quote, but it's daring leaders who live into their values are never silent about hard things. And those hard things become a little bit easier for daring leaders because they know their values. This is another quote that I wanted to read. She says, "Our values should be so crystallized in our minds, so infallible and so precise and clear and unassailable that they don't feel like a choice. They're simply a definition of who we are in our lives. In those hard moments, we know that we are going to pick what's right now over what is easy, because that is integrity. Choosing courage over comfort is choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy. And it's practicing your values, not just professing them." So what we're gonna do is, this is a big old list of words. I know it's a very large, lot of words for one slide, but this is Brene Brown's values list. It's also on our Teams page and the biweekly folder for this week on Teams. So you can also pull that up if you would like. But we're gonna spend about 5 minutes, which maybe not be a whole lot of time. But the goal is to kind of go through this list and see if you can identify your 2 core values. So all of these values, all these words are good things, right? But when we're looking for our core values, we want to be thinking about, like, is this really, really important to me? She gives the questions of asking yourself, does this define me? Is this who I am at my best? And is this a filter that I use to make hard decisions? So there's going to be some like second tier, and it might help to try and narrow it down to your top like 10 or 15, kind of categorizing and choosing the best for each category. But the goal is to try and get it down to like your 2 core values. So yeah, well, like I said, we'll take about 5 minutes to try and see if we can narrow it down to our core values. I would say try and get down to at least 1. So we'll come back at 45. Alrighty, take about 2 more minutes trying to narrow those values down. Alrighty, so hopefully you were able to narrow it down, maybe identify at least one of those core values, if not both. But essentially what we're gonna kind of round out today with is we're gonna do kind of like a turn to a partner. So I'm about to open breakout rooms. So you might want to take a picture, jot down notes about each of these things. But go ahead and with your partner, kind of, define what each of your values mean to you. If you have a value of faith to you might look very different than what faith to me would look like. So what does that value mean specifically to you? And then also see if you can identify like 3 behaviors that support you living into that value. And then lastly, we wanted to kind of bring in some motivation as well. So maybe thinking about and talking about with your partner, how do your values relate to what your motivation? How do your values relate to what your motivation is? And what is your motivation? Is there a disconnect between your values and motivation? Like what do we make of that? So yes, like I said, we're gonna do like a turn to a partner type deal. If my Zoom will allow me, I was going to open up breakout rooms. There we go. So I will open up those rooms and then I will bring us back to, sorry. I will bring us back to the main room to kind of close us out. So I will go ahead and open those up. Adrian and Dylan, are y'all having trouble joining? Oh, there goes Dylan.
Adrian looks frozen on my end, like there's tech issues or something. Can you move him yourself, Oscar?
I don't think so. Slash, if I do, I don't know how.
Yeah, Adrian definitely has not moved on my end.
There we go.
Okay.
I think, nope, I think he got disconnected. Okay, well,
Uh-oh. Is there somebody without somebody?
I think so. So let me see my options.
Madeline is without someone.
Mm. Zo- Oh, Madeline, hello.
Hi, I didn't have anyone in my room.
Yes, so sorry.
It's okay.
Um, you and Adrian were in a room, but I think Adrian's been having some
Oh,
tech issues.
Oh,
can
okay.
can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know what happened. My Wi-Fi is so bad. I pressed join, but it didn't take me. I guess it glitched for some reason.
Hey, it is all good. We understand tech issues. Should have seen us at the biweekly yesterday.
Y'all want to just stay in this room?
Sure, that's fine with me.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yo, like honestly though, these are getting personal. I was like, oh my gosh, these should not be being that personal. So the two values that I relate to the most are responsibility or reliability and family. I see those coming up in my life like a lot, especially like in my work. Like a lot of what I do is just work and college stuff, and then I'm with my family. So I see a lot of wanting to be reliable for my family and just work and SI especially too. What about you, Adrian?
So my greatest just a second. Yeah, define. So my greatest value would be honesty. Because in my opinion, you need to be honest in everything you do except yourself. You cannot like fool yourself to be someone, and you have to like, as I said, be honest yourself. Because that's how you try to get on the right path. And another value for me would be hope, because so my third strength was futuristic. So I kind of relate that to hope, because that's kind of my motivation. So I always motivate myself by having hope and thinking about what the future has to offer. Like, even though I might, like, for instance, take some courses at certain issues, I keep motivating myself that the outcome would really benefit me, and I would really enjoy the outcome.
All right,
Yeah,
just so
but
you know, I'm gonna close the room so people might hop in, but feel free to continue. All right, I think everybody's back now, but hopefully you had some good conversations, got to maybe know each other a little better. You know, these are some very like personal stuff as well. But it's a really great like insight into people and how they act and what their motivations and all that are. So it's a really cool thing that we get to share with each other. But I hope everybody has a great weekend. Hopefully getting some rest this weekend after the first week after break. I know can typically be a little rough getting back into the swing of things. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and yeah, thanks for coming and participating in Biweekly this week.